So today we're going over making inferences, and we're going to be looking at passages from The Perks of Being a Wallflower. So before we dive in, we are going to take a look at some of the tools you can use on Google Jamboard just in case you aren't familiar with it. So there's a pen on the left-hand side where you can just scribble or make drawings, and then there's the eraser. And then there's also sticky notes, and you can change your color. And it's just, to capture any notes or ideas you have. So I'll just type my name. And once you hit save, then it'll pop up on the screen and you can move them around. And what else we have? You can add an image from Google or from your files. We also have some shapes. And the text box. And then we also just have a laser here to point things out. So that was just a quick overview of Google Jamboard, and now we'll get into reading some passages. So I'll be reading the passages out loud, and then I type some notes beforehand. These are some of the questions I'm going to be trying to answer. There will probably be other inferences I'm making, but these are just kind of to give me a guideline, which is, it makes making inferences easier because you have questions beforehand, like to ask yourself, well, what am I looking for? Since there's a lot of different types of inferences you can make, so it just makes it like a little guideline for you. So I'm gonna start reading. I don't know if I will have the time to write any more letters because I might be too busy trying to participate. So, if this does end up being the last letter, I just wanted you to know that I was in a bad place before I started high school, and you helped me. Even if you don't know what I was talking about or know someone who's gone through it, you made me feel not alone. Because I know there are people who say all these things don't happen, and there are people who forget what it's like to be 16 when they turn 17. So let's see, what can I infer about the writer? Who is the writer talking to? So I can infer that the writer is a high school student, since right here they talk about before I started high school. So that kind of gives me an idea of like an age range. They're a teenager. Let's see. The writer probably often writes to whomever they're writing to. They mention multiple times that they've been writing letters to this person, but they don't say who they're addressing. So I can infer that they're writing to someone maybe who doesn't know them, or someone either younger or older. It's kind of vague. Let's see. Well, also from right here where it says I might be too busy trying to participate, I can infer kind of some of the characteristics of the writer, like maybe before this they were really shy and probably withdrawn and probably didn't really get involved too much in school, and they're kind of like, this is kind of like a moment of change for them. They seem to be pretty thankful to the person they're writing to, and it says, even if you didn't know what I was talking about, which kind of reflects back to my earlier inference of maybe the person they're writing to doesn't even know them. And yeah, so we can move on to the next passage. And again, I have some questions here to kind of help guide me. So, I know these will all be stories someday, and our pictures will become old photographs, and we will all become someone's mom and dad. But right now, these moments aren't stories. This is happening. I am here, and I am looking at her, and she is so beautiful. I can see it. This one moment when you know you're not sad, you're not a sad story, you are alive. And you stand up and see the lights on the buildings and everything that makes you wonder. When you're listening to that song on that drive with the people you love the most in this world. And in this moment, I swear we are infinite. So let's see. What does the writer mean? What are they trying to say? Well, we could see that the writer is kind of like thinking about the future and kind of like talking from a perspective of being in the future but reflecting on the past. So let's see. But they make sure to mention that they want the reader to know that they are living in the moment, since they switch from talking about the future to talking about the present. But right now, these moments aren't stories, this is happening. So it's kind of like the writers reminding themselves to stay in the moment rather than focusing on the future, which can also help me infer more about their character, which is maybe they often spend time worrying about the future, but right now they're learning, like, hey, I should enjoy this while I'm here. I can infer right here with this line, she is so beautiful, that whoever they're with is somebody that they admire, maybe a crush. What are they trying to say? Well, from this passage, as I mentioned previously, it's most likely about enjoying the present and not worrying about the future. And yeah. So, next passage. Don't get me wrong, I know what happened was important and I needed to remember it. But it's like when my doctor told me the story of these two brothers whose dad was a bad alcoholic. One brother grew up to be a successful carpenter who never drank. The other brother ended up being a drinker as bad as his dad was. When they asked the first brother why he didn't drink, he said that after he saw what it did to his father, he could never bring himself to even try it. When they asked the other brother, he said that he guessed he learned how to drink on his father's knee. So, I guess we are who we are for a lot of reasons, and maybe we'll never know most of them. But even if we don't have the power to choose where we come from, we can still choose where we go from there. We can still do things, and we could try to feel okay about them. Let's see, so this passage seems very like, kind of like a lesson the writer's trying to teach, or maybe that they had just learned for themselves. We can infer that something maybe traumatic has happened to the writer from this first two lines. I know what happened was important and I needed to remember it. We don't know quite what happened to the writer. We would have to read some other passages from the story to figure that out. Let's see. So they mentioned that their doctor told them a story of these two brothers. And then at the end, they kind of reflect on what they learned from that story. So going back to like an earlier question about who the person is writing to, the writer is writing to, they seem to really confide a lot into this person. They seem to trust them very much by how they speak. They speak kind of like casually to them. Like they're not using really formal writing. And so then at the end, I can infer the lesson here is like, so I guess who we are for a lot of reasons, and maybe we'll never know most of them. It's people react to events or traumatic events in different ways. So the example he uses of two brothers having an alcoholic father and one never drank, but the other ends up becoming alcoholic. So it's kind of like you can't choose where you come from. but it's a difficult topic. But yeah, he's essentially saying you can't choose where you come from, but you choose where you go. But also, like, these events affect people differently, which is, you know. But overall, the passage is talking about the writer coming to a realization and explaining to the person receiving the letter, like, that I guess he's kind of like feeling that he's on the right track now from whatever happened to him. Oh, so yeah, that was the final passage. So this is just kind of a way to help see the process of making inferences, and backing up those inferences with what the text is saying.